Good evening, guys. I have discussion C for you. Now, we're discussing Scotland's version of the assisted dying bill in Scotland. So we're going to go through that debate tonight for C. So please join me for this insight as to how they propose to handle their terminal ill patients and right to die. Okay. The headline points to a pivotal moment in Scotland's ongoing debate over assisted dying during the during stage 2 of during stage 2 over the assisted dying for terminal ill adults. Scotland Bill members of the Scottish Parliament, or MSPs, rejected several proposed safeguards that were designed to narrow eligibility and strengthen protections. The bill, if passed, would permit terminally ill adults with full decision-making capacity to request medical assistance to end their lives. The rejection of these safeguards has intensified concerns among critics. Who argue that the legislation as currently framed risks being too permissive and insufficiently protective of vulnerable groups. Key safeguards that were rejected: 6 months prognosis limit. One of the most debated amendments would have restricted eligibility to individuals with a life expectancy of 6 months or less. This is a common threshold in jurisdictions such as parts of the United States. Its rejection means that the bill retains a broader definition of terminal illness, which critics argue could extend eligibility to people with conditions that are life-threatening, limiting, but not necessarily in their final months. Eligibility tightening and capacity checks. Other amendments sought to sharpen the criteria for who qualifies, including more rigorous assessments of mental capacity and clearer thresholds for medical confirmation. These were also voted down, leaving opponents worried that the bill lacks sufficient safeguards against coercion, misdiagnosis, or undue influence. safeguards against coercion, misdiagnosis, or undue influence, additional oversight mechanisms, proposals for stronger independent review processes, mandatory reporting, or more stringent professional obligations were summarily rejected, raising questions about how accountability and transparency will be assured if the bill becomes law. Legislative process and political context. Stage 2, scrutiny with nearly 300 amendments. The committee is working through almost 300 proposed amendments over a compressed 3-week period. This reflects the intensity of public and political concern, but also raises worries that the piece of deliberation may not allow for adequate consideration or complex ethical and legal issues. Distinct from Westminster, Scotland legislative process is independent of the UK Parliament, while the White House of Lords is also debating assisted dying. The Scottish bill is proceeding on its own track. Highlighting how devolved legislators can move differently on sensitive moral issues. Narrow stage 1 passage. The bill only passed the first stage by a slim margin, underscoring how finally balanced the debate is. A small shift in MSP voters could still derail the legislation at later stages. Concerns raised by critics, safety and scope. Advocacy groups such as Care Not Killing argue that the bill remains deeply flawed. They warn that without safeguards, there is a risk of incremental expansion, sometimes called the slippery slope, where eligibility could broaden beyond terminal illness, impact on disabled people, and human rights. Legal experts have raised alarms that the bill could inadvertently discriminate against disabled people, particularly if their conditions intersect with mental health challenges or suicidal ideation. This raises potential conflicts with human rights. Protections, especially the rights, especially the right to life and equal treatment, quality of scrutiny. Critics argue that rushing through hundreds of amendments in just a few sessions risks superficial debate. They stress that such a profound ethical and medical shift requires careful, deliberate scrutiny to anticipate unintended consequences, broader societal effects beyond individual cases. Opponents highlight ripple effects, pressure on healthcare systems, moral and professional dilemmas for doctors. And the cultural message about the value of life in the face of illness or disability. What the rejection signals a more permissive framework. By rejecting amendments like the 6-month prognosis limit, the committee has signaled a preference for broader eligibility criteria. Supporters frame this as respecting personal autonomy and avoiding arbitrarily cutoffs, while critics see it as weakening essential safeguards, a high stakes, uncertain stage. The bill remains in flux, with so many amendments still under consideration, and the final vote uncertain. The rejection of safeguards at this stage suggests that legislation may lean toward a more permissive model, but its ultimate fate will depend on how MSP reconcile autonomy, safety, and societal values in the upcoming debates. In short, the rejection of safeguards reflects a tension at the heart of the Scottish assisted dying debate whether the law should prioritize individual choice with minimal restrictions or whether robust guardrails are essential to protect vulnerable people and uphold broader social responsibility. The outcome remains finally balanced, and the decision made in the, the coming weeks will shape not only the bill itself, but also Scotland's wider ethical and legal landscape on end of life care. Okay, guys, that's it for tonight. I will see everybody tomorrow for shows. For now, Gator Wellness, take care, folks.